Kia ora koutou. I'm Kate Barbie, Support Coordinator for Fertility New Zealand. It's my pleasure to welcome you tonight to Fertility Week's webinar, Optimising Men's Fertility Through Lifestyle. This year's Fertility Week campaign is entitled I Am One in Four. Any of us can face challenges building whānau. 26% of Kiwis face infertility during their lifetime, affecting men and women equally. It can impact any New Zealander, regardless of factors such as ethnicity, education, urban, rural, and religion. The campaign aims to support and educate people who are currently trying to conceive, reduce stigma, and raise awareness amongst people who may be affected in the future. For those of you not familiar with Fertility New Zealand, we are a registered charity and we walk alongside all people facing fertility challenges. We have a dedicated helpline and provide support, information and guidance to anyone at any stage of their journey. Check out our website for more information. Presenting tonight's webinar, Optimising Men's Fertility Through Lifestyle, is Joe Barnett. Joe is a registered medical herbalist specialising in fertility and Fertility New Zealand board member. Thank you for being with us tonight, Joe. If you have any questions or comments, please type them into the chat box and Joe will respond to all questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you for joining us tonight and we hope you enjoy the webinar. Over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Kate. So deciding to have a baby is an exciting time for couples, but it quickly becomes stressful if fertility issues are present. And when we think of male fertility, we really focus on the making and the transporting of healthy sperm. So understanding sperm health is a really important part of improving fertility and the chances of conception. Did you know that both the egg and the sperm take about 3 to 4 months to develop and mature? And over this time, they are highly susceptible to DNA damage. Sperm are also very vulnerable to oxidative damage in the 5 days or so before ejaculation. So we can expect that if we improve our overall health and remove as many risk factors as we can, we should, in most cases, get improved fertility outcomes. And this is what we call preconception care, a time in that 3 to 4 months before conception where the aim is to optimize general and reproductive health of both partners. The semen analysis provides a biomarker of male health, and the main sperm health parameters that are analysed in the semen analysis is the quantity or the count. We need a large quantity of sperm to increase your chances of fertilisation. It looks at the sperm motility or its movement, and sperm need to be able to move forward to find the woman's egg, because if they just sit there wagging their tails and not moving, they're not going to get very far at all. And then we look at the sperm morphology or its shape, because a man's sperm needs to be in the correct shape to find and then fuse to the egg. Oops, and we have here we go. And then we look at the semen volume. So you need an adequate semen volume to transport that sperm for fertilization. Too much volume can also be a concern because it can dilute things too much. And then they look at the semen pH, which should be slightly alkaline, because that pH balance of semen is important to protect the sperm cell and also to help stimulate the motility. So a semen analysis will reflect a number of health aspects on that day of collection. But it is really important to not make a diagnosis on one sample, because that semen quality and its count and everything else can change between samples, even for fertile men. Oops, hang on, sorry, just trying to change slides here. Illness, fever, infection, all those kind of things can all help to lower sperm quality. So another thing to note here too is that you don't need to go to a fertility clinic to get a semen analysis done. You can go to your GP and request a form in a container and do it that way rather than having to go through a fertility specialist. I really, really strongly recommend anybody starting a family or to get at least 2 analyses done early on, because there are so many factors needed for healthy sperm, but we want to be reassured that there are many steps that new men can take to improve the health of your sperm. So ideally, fertility is something that couples should work towards together. Improving your fertility improves the overall health of the couple and the health of future children and possibly grandchildren as well. So it's really important to note that infertility is not just a woman's problem. In Australia, for example, and I'm sure it's not that different here, about a third of infertile couples or infertile situations are due to male factor issues, another third to female factors, and then the remaining third is a sort of combined male and female factors. So the male is contributing to fertility issues in about half of all cases. And it's really important, I think, to note here too, that male factors are responsible for about 50% of miscarriages as well. So it's not, you need more than just averagely healthy sperm to try and prevent miscarriages. So men, we really need you on board. Poor health, poor diet, paternal age, stress, all these kind of things can cause epigenetic changes to the sperm's DNA, which can then compromise both the pregnancy and perinatal health outcomes. And this includes things like this, increased incidence of gestational diabetes and preeclampsia, increased risk of preterm birth and low birth weight, increased admissions to neonatal intensive care, increase in childhood and cancer, adult cancer risk, an increased incidence of autoimmune and allergy tendencies, poor learning and behavioural outcomes, and poor long-term health consequences. To summarise, the health of the male sperm can impact on the health of the partner in pregnancy, the health of the child, and of course, the risk of miscarriage. So let's have a wee look at some of the things you can do, and probably also not do, to improve the health of your sperm. If time is on your side, consider a 3 to 4 month period of preconception care, whether you're trying naturally or if you know you're going to have some assistance. Ensure the sperm is tested early on or in the process and have at least 2 tests. Get routine preconception blood tests from your GP and keep copies of all your results. So make your own health file. And I find, when I see couples, if they've got copies already of what has been done, it's a lot easier for us to then work out, where we might need to fill in the gaps and where we need to focus our energy and attention. If you or your partner have a history of conditions that may be an issue for fertility, do seek help early. And if you have known or you are suspicious of sperm issues, of course, also seek help early, but getting the help of an experienced herbalist or naturopath is possibly quite a good idea. Or you can contact Fertility New Zealand or seek the support of a counsellor to help you develop some coping strategies, get some support, and also to get a different perspective on your situation as well. Tonight, I'm going to give you a bit of a brief overview of some of the things you can address yourselves to kind of give you and your sperm a bit of a head start. So we're going to look at some dietary stuff, look at weight and exercise, some of those things that I'm sure you all know. We're going to talk about smoking, alcohol, that kind of stuff, and also your environmental exposures. It's a big topic, and I really can only glance over the top of it tonight. Male adherence to a healthy diet over an unhealthy diet in the preconception period has the potential to improve all semen parameters and hasten the time to conception. A healthy diet is one that has a higher vegetable intake, nuts, olive oil, legumes, and whole grains with lower processed foods, meat and sugar. And I'm not saying no meat here, but just lower meat intake. So you want to really stretch your imagination with food and aim to eat a really broad and colourful diet, rich with variety and full of nutrients. You want to focus on eating the recommended intake of at least 5 serves or about 3 cups of vegetables a day, making sure it's really colourful and using seasonal vegetables as well. And here, you can't just eat that much at dinner time. You really need to spread them out over the day. The Mediterranean diet, which is rich in fruit and vegetables, has been shown to be a winner for fertility, of course, minus the red wine. You also want to be drinking 1.5 to 2 litres of preferably filtered water a day. Have a handful of raw unsalted nuts and seeds a day. Try and make sure you're having a protein serve at each of your 3 meals. and for snacks as well. Eat fish 2 or 3 times a week, but choose smaller fish like sardines, salmon, or herrings. Larger fish like tuna, for example, are more likely to be high in mercury, which has the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and the placenta. Blood sugar balance is a cornerstone of good health, including fertility health as well. So this is where we really want you to try and avoid all sweet things: sugar, artificial sugar substitutes, cordial, fizzy drinks, fruit juice, lollies, cakes, biscuits, chocolate, all that kind of stuff. You can have a little bit of organic honey, real maple syrup, and dried fruits, but keep it very minimal and use them sparingly. Swap out your white refined grains like white bread, pasta, and rice for whole grains. So basmati rice is okay because that's quite a low GI one, but otherwise go for brown rice as well. Eat your good fats daily for good hormonal balance and sperm function. You do need fats in your diet, but we want to make sure that they're the good ones. Preferably choose full-fat dairy products unless you've got cholesterol issues or any other health issues where that might not be appropriate. Use fats like coconut oil, butter, or ghee for high-temperature cooking, and then olive oil for, like if you're stir-frying or something like that. Try and stay away from margarines, olive and vegetable oil spreads. Instead, use olive oil and good quality, extra virgin olive oil, avocado, nut butters, pesto, hummus, or even a small amount of butter. Aim to eat locally and in season when it's available. Try and eat as much organic food as you can or as much as you can afford. Try and eat home-prepared quality food at least 90% of the time. And things to kind of include regularly in your daily foods is like a good variety of dark green leafy vegetables. Blueberries, you can, frozen blueberries are fine. Eggs, fermented foods, unless you've got histamine issues. Quinoa, sardines, oats, walnuts, goji berries. They're all kind of what we call super fat foods. You could also include avocado in there. And the other thing you can do is if you can, grow your own vegetables. So then you know what you're putting into them, so you know they're organic, and it will work out cheaper for you as well. And this kind of segues neatly into being overweight or obese. The impacts of carrying extra weight for male fertility are possibly not as widely discussed as it is for females. Overweight men are more likely to suffer from lower sperm counts and also poor results in all the other semen parameters. The major impact here seems to be an increase in DNA damage within the sperm, which is caused by reactive oxygen species. These are damaging substances associated with the inflammatory processes of obesity and insulin resistance that then cause oxidative damage to the cells in the body. This then leads to an increased time to conception, but also increases the miscarriage risk. Children of overweight fathers are also more likely to suffer from insulin resistance and obesity themselves. An IVF clinic in Adelaide found that overweight men had poorer outcomes and that embryos created were less likely to develop properly, probably all due to DNA damage. And also for men, higher levels of body fat can lower your testosterone levels and cause an increase in estrogen production. And this is also linked with poor sperm count, low libido, erectile dysfunction, loss of muscle mass, fatigue, depression, increased risk of cardiovascular disease, and poor vitality or low energy. So the benefits of healthy eating and regular exercise cannot be overestimated in preventing and reversing these issues. Generally, it's advisable to follow a healthy diet, as outlined earlier, and exercise regularly. If you've got problems that might make weight loss difficult, such as thyroid problems or insulin resistance, maybe type 2 diabetes, you might need a little bit of extra consideration or support, where if you consulted with a naturopath or herbalist who specializes in fertility, or maybe even a nutritionist who specializes in fertility, they might find that quite helpful. It really does come down in most situations to the basic calories in, calories out. how much you eat and how much you move. And if you're overweight, reducing your body weight by as little as 5% can significantly improve your fertility outcomes. So ideally, we want you to drop that weight before you're trying to conceive, or at least wait for 3 months after any significant weight loss to resume trying. But if time is of the essence, as it often is, weight loss with good liver and antioxidant support under the guidance of a good experienced naturopath is really your safest option. You want to aim for regular exercise, incorporating planned exercise activity with incidental stuff as well. So that might be that you, instead of taking the lift, you run up the stairs. You park your car a block away further from work and walk the rest. Just those kind of things that, help to keep you moving. The frequency and the type of exercise, of course, will depend on your current body weight, your health, what you enjoy even. But please don't wait for motivation to strike. Just get on with it. Do it. Prioritize it, put it in your diary, make it happen. For the best health and fertility benefits, it's important to try and use a bit of cardio and a wee bit of weight-bearing exercise. So cardio is the stuff that gets you sweating, gets your heart pumping. Okay, so maybe you're running, you're fast walking up a hill, something like that. Whereas the weight bearing is the stuff that challenges your muscles and helps to increase your strength. So you could do something like yoga, or it might be weightlifting. Your exercise will depend on your fitness level and your general health, and if you need to lose weight or not. But a kind of general guideline is to aim for 2.5 to 5 hours a week of moderate stuff, or 1.5 to 2.5 hours of vigorous physical activity, or some sort of combination of the above. And some people find that, going to the gym works for them. Others, they hire a personal trainer. Others, prefer doing things outside. It's really up to you. You want to also try and enjoy it as well. There are some things need to be cautious of, though. They need to be in any exercises that could compromise their sperm health. And a classic is cycling, because that pressure and the increased heat on your testicles is associated with sperm damage and decreased fertility. Now, I think there are certain bike seats that you can get that help to, help that situation. But your testicles are meant to dangle and keep cool. So if you're squashing them into tight lycra clothing and then you're squashing them onto your bike seat, it's not creating a really good environment for your sperm health. The other things you need to be aware of too is saunas and extended periods of sitting. So lots of truck drivers who are driving for hours and hours, day after day after day, you find that they have a lot of fertility problems. Or people who are at desk jobs where they're not moving around much. So you could look at building in regular breaks, so you're moving around, not wearing really tight clothing, like tight jeans, that kind of stuff, and also maybe getting a standing desk if you can. But even extended hours and hours of watching TV, which may be what's happened to some people over lockdown. You really want to try and keep moving, so you're not sort of stagnating too much. So we'll move on to the one that I'm sure everybody's been expecting, is alcohol intake. So excess alcohol is associated with a higher percentage of abnormal sperm, a lower percentage of motile sperm, a lower sperm count, elevated hormone levels, FSH, LH, and a lower total testosterone, lower libido, erectile dysfunction, and therefore, of course, increased time to conception, and increased miscarriage rates, poorer IVF success, and the time to conceive increases when men drink greater than about 5 standard drinks per week. So less is best. A maximum of 5 standard drinks a week, but not consumed all at once, because that's a bit like a binge drinking situation. But ideally, and I really encourage my clients to eliminate alcohol in that 3 to 4 months before planning to conceive, and until your partner is well into the second trimester, particularly where there is a history of miscarriage. And some men do struggle with this more than others, but it's if you can do it, it is worth it. Caffeine, the overall research with men is a bit inconclusive. But some studies have shown increased time to conception and possible sperm DNA damage with high caffeine exposure. Other studies have shown partners of men who drink 3 or more cups of coffee a day have an increased time to conception and increased miscarriage risks. And a higher caffeine intake has also been shown to be negatively related to IVF fertilization rates. So less is best. And again, with men, I tend to say try and limit your caffeine intake to the equivalent of 1 coffee a day. And, you know, obviously not all your caffeinated fizzy drinks and that kind of stuff as well. Smoking, another biggie. Male smokers are more likely to have impotence and erectile dysfunction. They're more likely to have poorer sperm health, and that's your number, morphology, motility, and more likely to have an increased DNA or genetic damage to the sperm as well. Even if a woman isn't a smoker, but her partner is, she is less likely to conceive naturally or with IVF and is more likely to miscarry. Passive or secondhand smoke can also increase the risk of stillbirth, miscarriage, and ectopic pregnancy. So smoking, you know, even in your environment is not desirable. And there's a lot of research now, you know, supporting this. But should you beat the odds and achieve a pregnancy and a live birth, children of smokers have an increased risk of small birth weight with, you know, with its associated complications, asthma, SIDS, birth defects, leukemia and cancer later in life, increased risk of psychiatric disorders later in life, and for female babies, smoking can impact negatively on their ovarian development as well. So most of the effects of smoking on your fertility will be reversed about a year after quitting, but you will experience an improvement with every week that goes by without a cigarette. So even if it's a week before you conceive, it's going to be better than someone who's been smoking right up. There is preliminary evidence suggesting that vaping may also damage sperm. And what I'm saying to people is don't wait for that research to catch up. You know, I don't think, you know, vaping is a good thing, probably. But again, the research isn't really there yet. But, you know, I don't think it's a great idea. Marijuana, probably the most commonly used illicit drug amongst people of reproductive age. In men, it reduces libido and sexual function by interfering with the production of testosterone. It can decrease fertility, reduce the number of sperm produced, and reduces the capacity of the sperm to fertilize the egg. Stoned sperm party hard too, you know, they tend to kind of, you know, go fast and crazy and then run out of steam and can't sort of last the distance. Of course, many men who smoke get women pregnant, but every man has a different fertile potential that will change through his life. And obviously, you know, with men too, I haven't talked about age tonight, but, you know, your male fertility does reduce with age, just not maybe as dramatically as it is for females. If your fertility is already compromised, smoking marijuana will just add to the problem and make conception more difficult. Party drugs, street drugs, illicit drugs like cocaine, heroin, etc., all have dramatic effects on fertility and general health as well. Men can suffer reduced libido, abnormally shaped sperm, and low sperm count. Research is a bit tricky in this area, but it's really best to avoid all forms of substance abuse in the months before and while trying to conceive for the sake of yourself, your partner, and your future children. I won't go over this. You guys can have a wee look at this because I think I'm going to run out of time tonight. But this is just some ideas about, you know, if you've got an addiction to alcohol, smoking, whatever, just some ideas about how you can work through that. So to summarize, ideally eliminate alcohol consumption to protect your sperm and your testosterone production. Keep your consumption to a minimum until your partner's well into the second trimester. Eliminate cigarettes and marijuana completely. Limit your coffee to 1 a day or less. Consult your GP to review any prescribed or over-the-counter meds you might be taking. And consider all of this a great way to support your partner as well through this process. Right, we'll have a wee look now at environmental factors, and they're big. And there's a lot of things we can't control, but there are some things we can manage. So we'll focus on the ones we can manage tonight. There's growing evidence of chemical and heavy metal exposures really negatively affecting spermatogenesis and fertility outcomes. And this can be from current or historical exposure. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, because when I see people, I really quiz them on their, where did they grow up? What kind of work have they done from a little one right through, just anything that you may have been exposed to. Endocrine disrupting chemicals. So these are chemicals that disrupt the way hormones work in your body. So BPAs, phthalates, pesticides, that sort of thing. And then we've got your heavy metals, mercury, lead, aluminium, and cadmium. They're just some of many. Radiation is another big one, and multiple studies have confirmed that radiation exposure damages sperm DNA, and this is possibly due to direct testicular exposure from Wi-Fi and mobile phones. Antioxidant supplementation has been shown to reverse a lot of that damage to a degree, and that depends how much you keep getting exposed to as well. So some ideas to create a bit more of a fertility-friendly environment, because chemicals make their way into our homes and our lives in varied ways, and we don't often stop to consider the impacts that they might have. But if you start to make some conscious choices to do things a bit differently, you can reduce your exposure and thus improve your health and fertility outcomes. And the bonus is you'll be minimizing many health risks for you later in your life, but also improving the overall state of your family's health as well. Especially when probably the biggest one is trying to avoid the use of plastics. Especially, so you think about when you're storing, you're packaging, you're cooking, you're freezing your food, all that kind of stuff, and also your canned goods. A lot of the cans, if you look inside them, they've got that white plastic lining. So you want to look for BPA-free cans as well. All these products can leach chemical compounds, many of which will act as endocrine disruptors. BPA, or bisphenol A, is the one that we've probably most heard about. And there are many BPA-free products on the market, but they're not necessarily safe either, because they've just replaced them with other things that are a bit similar. So really, really, really focus on minimizing your exposure to plastics. Hygiene products, like household cleaning products and stuff, a lot of manufacturers, they don't have to list everything on the label. And a lot of those fragrances and preservatives, that kind of stuff, are known endocrine disruptors. So you want to switch to safer cleaning products. So things like EcoStore, some of your more natural products, or just using baking soda and white vinegar and adding some essential oils is another really easy and effective way to clean. Another thing to be mindful of too is sprays, because you're inhaling so much of those, like bench cleaners, that kind of thing. So really trying to avoid using spray stuff. The other thing is try and avoid, if you can, dry cleaning, because the solvents used in dry cleaning are absorbed through the skin and aren't good for you either. And there was one study I read that they found that they can be detected, the odors and things can be detected on your breath for up to 48 hours after you've been wearing your clothes. So if dry cleaning is unavoidable, try and find a chemical-free dry cleaner. And I think they are becoming, more of them out there. Then what are you using on your body? So choose safer personal care products. So that's shampoos, conditioners, hair care stuff, skin care, sunscreen, deodorants, air fresheners, that kind of stuff. So men and women are exposed to huge amounts of chemical compounds, particularly phthalates, and they're found in your shampoos and your conditioners and detergents. And they're quite a big deal for male fertility. And I've put a link here where you can have a wee look into that as well and just get a bit more information and how to sort of read the labels on your products. Renovations, new furniture, that kind of smell you get, it's actually the release of endocrine disrupting chemicals. So if you're planning on building or renovating or buying a new car or new furniture, have a wee look at some Healthy Home, Happy Family guides before you do so. And if you can delay, I would, or look for non-toxic materials, or even if you're having to do renovations that you can move out, then do that. But if you can't, make sure you wear protective clothing if you're doing any work yourself, and just be really, really mindful of what you are exposing yourself to. And then mercury is another big one. Dental amalgams are quite a common source of mercury exposure. Now is not the time to be removing them because it will increase your body loading. And mercury also comes in through our food chain. So your large fish like tuna and shark tend to accumulate mercury. So you really want to avoid those. And make sure your diet, as we've talked about, is high in antioxidant fruits and vegetables to help protect cells against any heavy metals. Lead is another one, and that can irreversibly damage neurodevelopment in unborn babies. So all surfaces painted to about the 1980s are likely to contain lead-based paints, which while undisturbed are fine, but once you start removing them and the dust emerges, the problems start to arise. So take really, really great care and make sure you remove and wash your clothing and stuff afterwards as well. And wear masks, proper ventilated masks and things. Aluminium's another one. So sources of aluminium come from your deodorants, antacids, beer, soft drinks, some of them, which you're going to be removing anyway, hopefully. Aluminium foil, old aluminium cookware, and some baking powders as well. And your water. In most areas, it is best to filter your drinking water. And lots of things sneak in through there: pesticide residues, chlorine, aluminium. The best filters to use are reverse osmosis ones, but a carbon filter will do the job. And of course, you want to remember, stay away from your bottled water in plastic. So if you have water bottles, use glass or stainless steel rather than plastic ones, because we want you to drink lots of water. And the other big one is trying to reduce your exposure to radiation. We're exposed to natural sources of radiation every day through the sunshine and from the earth, and that's fine. The problems come from your chronic exposure to man-made radiation from things like mobile phones, Wi-Fi, laptops, microwave ovens. It's hard to assess. You can't see it. You don't feel it. You can't smell it. It's invisible. Ionizing radiation damages DNA bonds in cells, which leads to chromosome damage and cell death. And non-ionizing radiation can cause thermal heating via induced currents and electron excitation. So from a fertility perspective, nothing is important as cellular health and DNA structure. Remember, a successful conception relies on the delivery of 23 perfect chromosomes from the egg and 23 perfect chromosomes from the sperm to help produce the building blocks for an entire new human. Sperm in particular are very small, they're very delicate, they're hanging external from the body, and they're susceptible to the effects of radiation. The good news is that for the most part, moving about 2 meters from your radiation source will reduce the impact. So, of course, we can't do much about the irradiation that's in the air around us, but, the obvious sources you can move away from. So try and choose not to carry your mobile phone in your pocket, for starters. And if it is in your pocket, pop it onto airplane mode if you can. Avoid resting your computer or your laptop on your lap. Give yourself a 2-meter radiation exclusion zone while you sleep. And I really encourage people to, if you can, switch your Wi-Fi off overnight. If you have to have your phone in your bedroom charging, flick it onto flight mode and remove electronics from your bedroom. Or at least, if you've got a TV in your bedroom, for example, turn it off at the wall. Same with your electric blanket if you have one of those. And you can reduce your radiation exposure by filling your room with plants that help to detoxify radiation and filter the air. So things like spider plants, peace lilies, luckily plants are quite fashionable again. Aloe vera, chrysanthemum, snake plants are just some of the options you could look at. So after all this, you might feel like you need to live like a monk. Well, you don't really, but there's a lot you can do yourself, and then there's a lot of people out there that you can seek help for, and it's really helpful. It's really good to build up a fertility support team and find people that you can relate to, that can help support you through the journey and you feel comfortable with. When it comes to lifestyle matters, usually what's good for the heart, the mind, and your immune system is also beneficial for your reproductive capacities. And of course, you might think that alcohol is good for your mind, but that's one of the things that isn't really. Do your best without letting that perfect become the enemy of good, and know that you're doing the best you can do to improve your chances of conception. So reach out, talk to people, seek advice from qualified professionals. And Fertility New Zealand is there to help guide you in the right direction. And I've also put my details on I think one of the last slides. So if you want to get in touch with me, you're more than welcome. And I think, any questions now? No questions?
Thanks for that, Jo. That was really informative. We're nearing the end of our webinar and just want to check if anybody does have any questions. Now is the time to post them. We'll just give you all a few seconds to post anything that you'd like asked. Here is Jo's contact details as well, if you'd like to take note of those too. So Jo is based in Christchurch, but Jo, you do see people nationally, is that right?
Yes, I can do Zoom appointments. You know, these days that's what we've been doing anyway. But yeah, certainly do stuff via Zoom.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Anna, for your message on Facebook. Great presentation. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Anna.
Okay, so we've got one question coming in here.
So Courtney, are there any supplements that you recommend taking for males with low count? There are a lot of supplements, and it depends. I mean, with supplements, it gets a bit tricky for me because it really does depend. I look at the whole person and each individual situation. But lots of good quality antioxidants, a good quality fish oil actually, and that's something I did forget to stress before. So I want to segue into that. Please, of all supplements, do not buy cheap pharmacy or supermarket fish oil supplements. You really need to, if you're going to take fish oil, you need to get really good quality ones that have been screened for heavy metals and that kind of thing. And also because a lot of the cheap ones have also oxidized as well, so they're going to cause more problems than not. So so good antioxidants is herbs like tribulus, Korean ginseng, that kind of thing. But I'm happy to have a chat with you. Want to message me, Courtney? I can give you a bit more information.
All right, Jo. We've got another
one. It's not showing up here though. Oh, here we go. Is Menova a good supplement to take? I don't recommend Menova personally, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad supplement to take. I think for a lot of people, I've seen males getting some great results. So it's a good sort of overall comprehensive, cover your bases kind of one.
Would you recommend another supplement there, Jo, in replacement of Menova?
Well, I could. The supplements I use are all practitioner-only ones, so I'm not that au fait with a lot of the over-the-counter stuff. But I use a lot, there's an Eagle Tresos multi with extra selenium. So a really good quality multi with preferably activated bees for most people, and extra selenium is a really good one to take. And then I'll show you one I've got while I think about it. Disappearing. There's this, can you see that? There's this one called Mito Pro, which is one of my favorites. And in there we've got carnitine, we've got selenium, coenzyme Q10, zinc, lipoic acid, magnesium, vitamin E, B6, B5, B12, folate, and biotin, and some Damiana. And that's a really good overall sort of, one supplement does quite a lot. Are there any tea drinks that you recommend over coffee? A lot of people like cereal, like dandelion root or roasted chicory coffee, which is a good alternative. And then green tea is great. It's still got a bit of caffeine in it, but it's got a lot of antioxidant potential. And then any of your herb teas are good, you know, like peppermint tea or licorice tea, or just whatever takes your fancy, really. Some people also just carbonate water. You know, if you've got a soda stream machine, you could just carbonate water and then add some lemon juice or some lemon balm or something like that to it, and that can be quite a nice refreshing drink as well. How much cycling is problematic? Again, it depends on the individual, and you know, some people seem to get away with more than others. But I think if you're cycling, mountain biking isn't quite so bad as road cycling, because with mountain biking you're up off your seat a lot more, so that's not so bad. It's really the road cycling that can be a problem. So if you were biking, you know, it's the hours and hours and sitting in the seat that's probably more of a problem than the frequency. Then, you know, like if you were doing an hour every couple of days is probably better than 4 or 5 hours at a time, you know, which you might do, you know, 2 or 3 times a week. Yes, there are supplements that help with motility, particularly like coenzyme Q10 is a good one, or ubiquinol is another form of that. Ginkgo is a great herb that helps with motility. And then the stuff I just mentioned in the MitoPro that I just talked about before, that's a really good formula for low motility as well. Okay, I think that's all, is it? Any other questions come up?
It looks like all the questions we have tonight, Jo. So thank you so much for tonight, and a really informative webinar. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just let people know what is coming up for the rest of Fertility Week. So there are another couple of webinars tomorrow night and Thursday night if you can jump on. So add-ons and research tomorrow night with Professor Cindy Faulkner, and the cost of infertility with Dr. Greg Phillipson. We hope you can join us for these webinars. All of our webinars are recorded and will be available on our website and social media sites. Thank you all for joining us during Fertility Week, and a big thank you to Jo for sharing your time and expertise. So good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Jo, I'm sure that if there are a couple of questions that haven't been answered tonight, you'd be happy for us to send those through for you to answer. Would that be okay?
Yes, that's totally fine. That's great.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Jo, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.